Everyone, remain calm.
Yeah, that's how it always starts. And later there's running and screaming.
Somebody talk to me! What is happening?
Welcome to Jurassic World.
You're listening to the Jurassic Park Podcast.
You want to consult here or in my bungalow? Hold on to your butts.
Well, we're back.
Hello and welcome to the 57th episode of the Jurassic Park Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Jost, and we're here to discuss all things Jurassic Park. In this episode, we have another great Top 5 segment, this time with visual effects artist Aaron Beyer, where we list our favorite toys from Series 1 and Series 2 of the original Jurassic Park Kenner toy line. I think you'll really enjoy our conversation and reminisce right alongside us. Don't forget to check out our Jurassic World commentary that we uploaded to the podcast feed. It won't be up there forever, so make sure to download it and listen to it while it's still in the feed. So as Jurassic June is winding down, we hope you enjoy our newest Top 5 segment. It's another long list, so let's dive right in.
5.
Dinosaurs and man, 5 million years of evolution.
4. You might be the 4th.
3. I'm gonna contact the other 3 members of your team and I'm gonna stalk them. 2.
How many lines of code are there?
About 2 million. 1. That is one big pile of
This week, I'm joined by Aaron Beyer, visual effects artist who worked on Jurassic Park 3D and Jurassic World 3D, and we're going to look at our top 5 toys from the Series 1 and Series 2 of the original Jurassic Park line. I think it's an incredible toy line. So many of us have these incredible nostalgic feelings towards these toys, and it may really be impossible to narrow it down to just 5 dinosaurs, vehicles, or humans. But I think we're going to do our best to try to attempt it. So, Aaron, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
I'm doing really good. I got my toys down off my shelf. They're all sitting here right next to me, and I'm ready to kind of analyze them and give my best top 5 as best as I can. It's kind of impossible, like I said, but you know, it's going to be tough. But I wanted to know specifically, you worked on movies such as Jurassic Park 3D and Jurassic World 3D. What is it that got you into doing that?
Basically, when I was a kid, my mom got me the original Jurassic Park 1 Pteranodon, and before I'd even seen the movie, and the detail on that was just like so. I don't know, man. I had never seen a dinosaur toy like that, and there were some, but they weren't as good as those, and that line was so expansive. I was looking at the count. Because we had talked about doing like our top 5, and there's like 44. Now I may have counted wrong, but if I counted wrong, I underestimated. But there's like 44 toys, and so I thought, oh my gosh, I got to pick 5 of these. That's going to be impossible. But played with that toy. My collection just got kind of bigger and bigger. Those toys were not that expensive when we were kids. Mm-hmm. And that just kind of led into storytelling and creating my own adventures, as like the toys weren't strictly based off of the movie. So that just kind of led to just my love of Jurassic Park and the films after that. And then, I just, I want to be able to tell my own stories using computer graphics. And, here I am today, like 20-some years later, and I had the actual opportunity to work on the 20th anniversary of Jurassic Park in 3D, and then later Jurassic World. So, but unfortunately, I can't go too much into depth. There's so much NDA stuff surrounding this, these movies that I don't want to, risk breaking that right now.
Yeah, no, we don't want to do that at all. So, this is something that I feel super passionate about, these toys, and obviously you do too. So instead of breaking your NDAs, why don't we get right into what we love about these dinosaurs? And
for sure,
what specifically, just kind of before we get into our top 5, actually, overall, like what's your feeling about like this toy line?
Kenner back in the 90s was just like, I feel like they were the toys to have. I was looking at their catalog here online, And it's like they were touching franchises like, well, obviously Star Wars, right? Everyone knows them from Star Wars. But also Batman the Animated Series, which, you know, every kid on the block had those Batman action figures.
Yeah.
You know, and we used to go, and there was like the mansion and stuff that you could throw Batman through the roof and all kinds of stuff. And I'm looking here, they did Ghostbusters, Aliens, Terminator. It was like anything cool in the 90s. Kenner was touching, and I think a lot of it has to do with the detail that they put into it. And I've got some things to say about that, and we can talk about that as we break down our top 5. But the detail on these toys back in the 90s was crazy. I look at the Jurassic World toys, and some of them are great. But then I look at them, like some of the other ones, and I'm just like, did you ever maybe see this dinosaur like in a picture or something? Yeah, like I don't know, but the level of details on these toys were fantastic for the 90s. And it's just too bad that I used to hate when they remolded them and just repainted them, but I would kill today for like remolds of these action figures.
Yeah, it's something that's severely lacking. As I'm talking, I just keep looking over at these things because they're incredible. Even like, however many, 23 years later, it's still impressive. And like you said, I have a few Jurassic World toys here. I have a few Raptors in front of me. They look really cool, but they still just, it's hard. It's really hard. I try to compare them, but for instance, you have like the original Raptor. You compare that to these new Raptors. These ones are all electronic that I have. So there's a big difference. They're much bigger. They've got a lot of different parts to them, like parts that look separated from the actual dinosaur. Things that stick out. There's a lot of creases and screw holes and stuff like that. And you'd barely see any of that stuff on the old ones. So it's really hard to compare them, though. In general, the new ones look really good. So do the old ones. But maybe it's a lot of nostalgia. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. For me, part of it is like there was a lack of posing, I want to say, in the original toys. So like it was just, here's a dinosaur toy, right? Now they're like in poses. And for me, when I was a kid, having a pose toy like took away maybe like the imagination that I could have with what that particular toy was doing. We're not talking about Lost World toys, but like the Stegosaur toy from the Lost World, I love that toy, but she's arched like, I want to say like almost like in a C shape. And for me as a kid, I was fortunate enough that, when Christmas would come around or whatever, everyone knew what to get me like family wise. So like if I got 2 Stegosauruses for Christmas, I didn't return one. I just had 2 Stegosauruses like in my like park in my basement, So to see 2 of those next to each other in the same exact pose maybe kind of took me out of that, like that imagination, I guess, or out of that fake reality that we were creating down in the basement in west of Detroit, so
yeah, I think that is part of it, because you can you can sort of do that with the new ones, but the new ones only really stand a certain way. Like you can't,
if we're
they
lucky.
fall over. You're serious. If we're lucky, they stand a certain way. The old ones, you can kind of like lean them on their tails. You can put them on their claws, and they're good. You can stand them on their feet. After time, they get a little wobbly, but they're still great, toys. And you can kind of like, I can make my Raptor bite the way I want it to. I can make it claw the way I want it to, freely, without like a tough move of the arm or anything.
Yeah, when Series 2 came out and the Pachycephalosaur, the red and black one with the dome came out, man, I got like, I want to say I got like 2 or 3 of those for Christmas one year. And, again, I remember my aunt saying like, oh, I'm sorry, you can take it back. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is amazing. I have a herd of Pachycephalosaurs, like, just like in the books, and what's great about those is like, one of them you could like kind of stand up on its haunches, and then like you could like lay one down. You could, and just that kind of all added to like the scene that like we were creating, me and my friends down in our basements, So it was just really cool back in those days, and it's like there wasn't any thought put into the pose, but I want to say that the thought was like giving kids the imagination to come up with that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you brought it up a little bit earlier. You said you had your park down in your basement. And that was the same thing that I had. Whether it was in my basement or in the backyard, I always set up a little park, and, me and my cousin or whoever would go down there and just like destroy these toys and throw them around, throw the humans, the cars, just like headbutt a different dinosaur, and we've really, really demolished these things. And the fact that they still mostly hold up pretty well is astonishing. And I don't know if I could say the same for like the Jurassic World line. I feel like if I threw them against the ground now, they'd probably just shatter.
Yeah, I wasn't particularly rough with my toys. Like I wasn't like a Sid from Toy Story, right?
Oh,
like I wasn't out
not that
like
rough.
strapping grenades, right? But we definitely hung Jurassic Park cars from like the stairwell, and if they fell, I mean, like they fell, and they're still in great shape,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I like I said, I have mine here and I'm ready to go. So why don't we start with our top 5?
Okay.
Let's hear yours.
Okay, so you want to do my 5 and then your 5, right?
Yes,
Okay. So let's make sure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. All right. So my 5th choice is the Series 2 Ian Malcolm figure.
Okay.
All right. And what I liked about this one was this was probably one of the last figures that I got back in the 90s. Just because I think by the time these guys came out, my parents were like, enough. We've bought you enough dinosaurs. And stuff. You got so many of them. Like we're kind of done with that. But this one was great because I remember like saying like, no, you don't understand. I have to have an Ian Malcolm. They don't have Ian Malcolm in the other line. I have to have this one. And what's great about this one, this is like the first Jurassic Park figure that actually looks like the actor.
Yeah, you're right.
Like you look at that and you were like unmistakable.
That's him.
This is Jeff Goldblum, right? Like this is a Jeff Goldblum action figure. This isn't an Ellie Sattler figure. This isn't a Robert Muldoon figure. This is a Jeff Goldblum, Ian Malcolm like action figure, right? Mm-hmm. The card, unfortunately, they had stopped doing the illustrations, which I'll get into that a little bit later. But the gun that he comes with is so ridiculous. It reminds me kind of like in the book when they talk about how Muldoon wanted heavy weapons to like manage the dinosaurs, and this gun is like I can't even explain it. It's like this big tranquilizer dart, I guess, because it's got like green, and I guess Ghostbusters was cool back in those days. So like he's got almost like it's like a plasma backpack or something. But he comes with that baby Gallimimus, which I thought was, as a little kid, I drew that little Gallimimus over and over and over.
Oh yeah.
And unfortunately, that was the only Gallimimus I had until I was like in college, because those were tough to get in my region, like the Series 2 Galleys. And so really, this little baby Gallimimus was the only Gallimimus I had for my entire collection for a really long time.
Yeah, I really like that one, and I love that Malcolm figure. He's got like his nice like suit jacket on. He's got his JP badge. But you're right, that pack and whatever that is, it's insane, and it doesn't exactly belong in a Jurassic series. But that's the fun of these toys, is they all come with something ridiculous, and it makes it fun.
Yeah, like I guess we should maybe note, like before we even go further, is like these toys were in production long before like I think that shooting had even started. So a lot of the cards and the action figures and like even the dinosaurs were based off of like the Crichton book. So you get into like some of the weapons, and it's like these weapons did not exist in the movies whatsoever. Like they had a few rifles or whatever in that shed, but like I want to say in the book they talked about like grenade launchers, and that chapter feels so weird in the book because they just start talking about all this nonsensical like Saturday morning cartoon military weaponry that it's like, okay, this doesn't fit, but for like toys, like right when you're creating toys for kids, you're like, oh yeah, it's gonna be awesome to have Alan Grant with a net launcher, like what kid doesn't want to play with that,
Yeah.
But yes,
that's the fun in it, though. You have these crazy action, backpacks and stuff. They all had some sort of crazy backpack, but I think that made it fun, and it made the commercials really awesome because they would show like the toy in action, catching a dinosaur or doing whatever it was doing, and it was always hilarious to look back on those things. Oh
my gosh, the commercials! I remember seeing the movie, and I didn't see the movie until probably maybe a month or two out, because I had been so scared by Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, like the heart sequence, and E.T. When I was a kid, and unbeknown, I didn't know this, that Steven Spielberg had directed all of his movies, but I remember someone saying Jurassic Park's really, really scary, and I was 7, right? So I'm thinking to myself, okay, I've been scared by movies before, E.T. literally terrified me as a child when he's screaming through that forest, and so not wanting to experience that again, I didn't see Jurassic Park for a really long time. So it wasn't until I had a bunch of toys first, because I thought the toys were so great, that I finally just got the courage to go see that movie. And man, I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did. I really, that movie essentially changed my life, right?
Oh, of course, yeah. Yeah, same here. And the funny thing is, if they had seen the movie and replicated the action thing to come with the figure, it would have been a flare for probably all the characters. It maybe would have been a flashlight and a headset for Ellie or something like that, but a flare is not exactly a fun toy to play with. It would have been a tiny stick to put in their hands, but instead you get some crazy, like you said, Ghostbusters looking backpack. So I'll take that. That's more fun.
And those commercials, man, were so fun. They just kind of expanded that universe, right? Because we all know at the end of the movie they all fly off and they never go back to Jurassic Park. But in the commercials, it was oh, they've broken out and it's up to Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler to get the thrashing T-Rex back in its cage. And you were yes, this is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. Here, take a listen. Let's see.
Jurassic Park, where the giant dinosaurs live again, with all the excitement of the movie. Look for the JP mark, only at Jurassic Park.
Oh man, and I remember, I still remember the catchphrase. It was, if it's not Jurassic Park, it's extinct. And I remember being, this was terrible of me, but I remember being a little brat at that point, because I remember being if someone was I got this dinosaur toy, I'm yeah, dude, but it's not Jurassic Park, so what of it? And that's such a terrible thing to say, but I was 7, so I'm not going to apologize.
Well, the thing was, in my little Jurassic Park that I made, I would have my Jurassic Park dinosaurs front and center, and if I still have them actually right here, a few of my older dinosaurs that didn't pertain to Jurassic, but they'd just kind of be in the background, they'd be the ones off in the distance that, Grant's looking at or whatever.
Yeah, I had, I did, you know what? I did have a Gallimimus. It was not a Jurassic Park Gallimimus, but I was so desperate to have one, that I did have one off-brand toy in my entire collection, you know what? It is what it is. I guess I'm contradicting myself now, but I knew that it wasn't really Jurassic Park, and I carried that shame with me until the day that it got replaced.
Yeah, well, you really can't replace these, like we said. So let me get into my number 5 here. Okay. And I'm going to kind of follow suit with you. It's a human figure, and this is the Series 2. I'm going to say the white shirt Alan Grant.
I love that one.
I know this one is one of my favorites, and I know he's a little bit different looking. I think they updated the face just a tad, but you can't really tell from the previous blue shirt, which I also have. Yeah, but it doesn't exactly look like Sam Neill, but it's almost there. It's good enough.
You know what was great about that one was he comes with a little stegosaur that never had a baby and this is so dumb. I'm a 31-year-old man talking about action figures needing to have babies, but the big stegosaur never had a baby hatchling, and that was the action figure where they finally gave it to you.
Yeah, I know. That's one of the best parts about this whole little combo. I mean, you had mentioned the net trapper. So you put that thing on the backpack, and then I didn't want to really capture that little baby because it's so cute.
Now that one did come with the net trap as well, with the blue shirt. Okay.
Yeah, the blue shirt did as well, and this one, it came with a little bomb as well. Seriously, a little nuclear bomb.
It's got a nuclear sign on it, man.
It's crazy.
They were using nuclear bombs in Kenner's Jurassic Park world. Yeah.
It's a really awesome little bomb too. I mean, it looks super cool. It's got all these spikes around the edges and stuff. But in what world does that make sense? None, I guess. But that's part of the fun.
In what world can you can't go to the store today and buy a toy that comes with a nuclear bomb?
No.
Not at all. Yeah.
I mean, you can't even get something with like a net trapper on the back. Like it's just like just a toy. And usually, like I have a few Star Wars ones from the new line, and it'll come with like, you know, the figure, and then maybe one little, attachment of some sort, or thing that really doesn't even make any sense pertaining to the character whatsoever. Like, I don't even know what to do with them. I think there are things that you need to combine with other ones, but I don't even know. It doesn't make sense. You can't like play with it. These at least you could play with. I could play with that little bomb. I could use that in some sort of scenario. I could use that, net trapper.
Yeah, 100%. I remember having that little bomb and being like, I can't believe, like, because the bomb makes zero sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
But like, I remember like coming with scenarios where like maybe like Nedry had the bomb or whatever and like blew open the gates or whatever like that. And like it just the toys were crazy back in those days. And I look at like there's no human figures, right? We all complain there's no human figures anymore with the Jurassic Park or the Jurassic World toys, right? And I think like, well, Kenner was doing it right back in the day. They were giving you a dinosaur. Like, was it superposable? No, and it was really small, but it made sense in that story that like kids were maybe trying to tell at home. And I feel like if they would just like kind of like what they did with the Owen Grady motorcycle, like if they could just package like a character with every basher dinosaur or biter or whatever they're called nowadays, but like, I got a Ceratosaur, but how awesome would it have been to like pay an extra $1 or $2 to get the Ceratosaur with Claire or something like that,
Yeah, it would make much more sense because all you have is a dinosaur and no story to tell. You'd have to take something from like Star Wars if you got that, for your birthday. You'd have to play with that as well. It'd be like Rey up against the little, Velociraptor.
Kids these days in their video games, man.
Yeah, you can. That's the thing. Video games now, you can combine all these different characters and play whoever you want. So maybe it works for them, but I wanted to play with, Jurassic Park humans, Jurassic Park vehicles, and Jurassic Park dinosaurs, and that's it. And this Alan Grant here, specifically this white shirt one. Now I had the blue one, like I said, but the white one, something was special about him. I don't know why. Maybe just because it was like the first different outfit, for the character, and it was awesome. And this is something that me and my cousin would fight over. Like, you like line up your toys, all your characters, all the dinosaurs, and kind of like, like you're playing dodgeball. You'd pick, you go, I go, you go, I go. And this white shirt Grant was always one of those ones where we kind of argued over who would get it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And, these figures, they've got very small amounts of articulation. The heads barely move. The arms, they spin, and the legs spin a little bit, but that's it. And that's good. I think that's good.
Yeah, so let me ask you this. So, like, the argument these days always comes down to, even in dinosaur toys, right, comes down to articulation.
Yeah.
Would you rather have an articulated toy that looked like basically some kind of robot with a bunch of nuts and bolts in their knees and their waists and all that stuff? Or would you rather have a toy like this where it was just like, his legs come up like at a right position and his head turns and his arms move? Like, this
is all I want. Like, all I want him to do is go from a standing position to a seated position. Like, that's it. Legs straight, arms basically straight. The only thing is this Grant has like a curled arm. He's like kind of like bent at the elbow. One of them. But that's all I want. I just want this small amount of articulation. Basically 4 points here. And, there's like little peg holes in the feet just in case you wanted to, put it on something. But that's all I need. I don't need this crazy movement. And like you said, they look like little robots or, some sort of crazy looking figure with all these different joints. It just doesn't look smooth.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I was always about. I was always about like the less. See, I don't know, man, because I feel like kids these days or even adults, like in high-end like collectible figures, they want like all the articulation so they can put it in their own pose. And I feel like there are companies like Hot Toys that create these like 1/6 scale figures. And I think the company that did that big breakout T-Rex is actually doing like a 6 scale Owen. They've got all the points of articulation you could ever possibly need. And that's kind of like a high-end thing, but for a kid's toy, it needed to stand and it needed to sit in the car, and it had like 2 jobs, and that was that,
Exactly. Yeah, that's all I needed, and these things worked perfectly. They sat when I wanted them to. They stood when I wanted them to. I could use their arms to lean against something if they weren't standing exactly right. But they're perfect, and they're good size. I like this size. I think eventually they, for the Jurassic Park 3, I believe. I honestly, I didn't even get any Jurassic Park 3 toys, but I think they shrunk them down a little bit, and the same thing goes for that. I think, they came out with the one Owen figure just recently, and I think that's a little bit smaller if I'm judging it correctly. I'm not sure.
I was going to say, were you on strike at Jurassic Park 3? Because when they shrunk those humans down, I was like, no, this is not happening.
Yeah, that was the thing. Whether they're good toys or not, I honestly don't even know. It's about the size. And they shrunk them down, and I really hated that. And the same kind of goes for a lot of new figures today, like the few Star Wars ones that I have. They're tiny. And I don't know. I don't think I can beat them up the same way I would with this guy.
Yeah, like for a while, like my collection, like the photos are floating around out there online. But like, for a while I was like, oh, I'm only gonna do the 2 Spielberg movies. Like, I'm not gonna invest in Jurassic Park 3 because, Jurassic Park 3 came out at a time where I was, I want to say maybe early high school, and at that point it was like, look, Aaron, you got your own money now. Like, we're not buying you a bunch of like toys and stuff. So it was like, okay, they're not the same size. They don't go with my stuff. And I also don't have very much money. Like, I would much rather like put gas in my car and like go cruise around or whatever. But so Jurassic Park 3 got lost. And then when Jurassic World came out, I was like, yeah, I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with the Spielberg ones, and I'm just going to have those 2. And then I got a credit on that movie, and I was like, okay, how do you work on a Jurassic movie and not buy all the toys? That's not gonna happen. Yeah. So Jurassic Park 3 is like the big hole in my collection. But that's all right.
Yeah, I guess that's the only reason, because you'd see those things on the shelf and know that they were small. So I never got into them because I just have so much love for this size figure for some reason. I guess because of these toys.
I got just a couple of, like, I think I got the Alpha Raptor because I thought that design was kind of, I look at it today and I'm like, it's maybe not my favorite, which, by the way, I listened to the episode about the favorite Raptors. I'm sorry, the Lost World Raptor, way better than all the other ones. You guys are crazy that's the last place Raptor. That one was great. You guys are all nuts.
It was really great. I don't remember my exact list. I think I had the original one at the top, I believe. But yeah, those Lost World ones are so intense. But I love those.
What was crazy about the Lost World was that the way they marketed it or whatever, and this is the toys and in the movie, I always assumed that the color change was that those were the males. Mm-hmm. That, like, because there was no males on the first island, right? So I always assumed that, like, the brightly colored ones or whatever were the males, and then like the ones, like the darker ones were the females. And then Jurassic Park 3 kind of throws that out the list, and you're like, well, wait, like, why? I never looked at Lost World as being different. I always looked at them as being like the males or the boys or whatever. But maybe that was just me. I don't know. Maybe I just read too much into it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different opinions, but I think it all just goes down to different breeds. Whatever. It's not like it's going to cause too much of an issue with your canon or anything like that. So I think as long as you look at them as different breeds, different islands, everything's all right. And especially, I guess, when you compare 2 to 3, there's a lot of differences, and I don't believe you see anything resembling those Lost World ones. But
no, you don't.
But it is what it is. I'm gonna just say that there's different breeds, especially because they were allowed to breed on their own.
Yeah, and I think even like the book touches on that, is that they find out that raptors have been breeding the whole time, and they realize that they're all a little different, and I want to say it was almost like because they were becoming more like purebred or like reverting back to. I could be mistaken on this, so like sorry people, I if I'm getting this wrong, but I just want to say it was because it was like they weren't the ones being created in the lab, that they were different looking, and I want to say that even the Alpha Raptor in Jurassic Park, the book, at the end in the cave has a blue stripe, like blue. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I kind of like to think that it all dwindles down to that saying, I guess, Chris Pratt said in Jurassic World, like, you don't know what kind of dinosaurs they're cooking up in that lab, I think there was some work going on the island, on Sorna, and caused all these different breeds. And there was probably more going on than everybody knew about.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think that scene in the fourth Jurassic where Masrani is talking to Wu, there's almost a scene exactly like it where he's talking to Hammond, and he treats them like batches, like batch 1, batch 2, and like batch 1 has got this little bit of a concoction, and batch 2 has this little difference in it. So it was like as the park was progressing and they were going to have to keep replicating these animals, they were going to change over time anyway, because they were constantly like updating them like software almost, Yeah,
exactly. And how can you can't really guarantee the way they're going to come out anyway. Can you? I don't know.
Well, no, and I think
you can mix them up with all these different DNA characteristics, but I guess you can't guarantee the way they'll look in the end.
Yeah, for sure. But anyway, I could go on and on for
I know. It's
the discrepancies
so
in those movies, but
it's so easy to go
anyway.
off on tangents. But where were we? Yeah, so that was my number 5, white shirt Alan Grant from Series 2. So what's your number 4?
All right, so my number 4, man, I feel like a non-purist at this point. My number 4 is the capture cruiser from Series 2, the Dino Trackers. Now, I never had one of these as a kid. My story for this toy is that I had kind of one year over, I want to say summer break, I was home from college, and I was cleaning out a room or cleaning out whatever, and I didn't really realize, like, I knew I liked Jurassic Park, right? Like, I knew I loved it. I knew it was, like, my thing, but I just didn't know, like, the sheer amount of stuff I had. So, like, I decided, I was like, well, I'm going to go through and kind of like consolidate it all, right? And a buddy of mine stopped over the house one day, and he was like, dude, you got a lot of this stuff. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of crazy. I just keep finding things like, in drawers and under the bed and like whatever. And he goes, dude, I got something for you. And he goes home and he comes back and he gives me his capture cruiser. I'm like, dude, no, like you don't understand, like that's a collector's item. He's like, no, he's like, dude, it's broken. I'm like, dude, even if it's broken, like you can't I can't just take this from you. He's like, no, dude, he's like, it is going to get destroyed at my house, like even worse than it is now. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that friendship, right? Like that's a good friend who's just going to give you this toy that I think on eBay these things go for a good amount of money.
I haven't looked.
And he just
recently.
gave it to me as a fan, But he just gave it to me, just being a huge fan, and so that's my story with that one. And what I like about this toy is it goes along the lines of like the whole Kenner wanting to like expand that universe, kind of in their own toy line. And it's not, it's not the red stripe Jeep, which is obviously a classic. But what I liked about this one was, if there were, I always pictured the Jeeps with the red stripe as kind of being like the veterinary kind of unit, right? Like, I just need to get out there quickly, and I just need to like maybe take care of something, okay? But like the capture cruiser was like, all right, down to business. We are gonna get these things captured, and I always pictured it in my head being like kind of like that first Humvee in the Lost World that comes up over that hill and just like smashes into that ground. Like this was a toy that had I been 7 years old and actually had this. This would have been one that just probably would have gotten so beat up, because I thought the Dino Trackers were a great thing. When they announced that was kind of going to be the role of Chris Pratt, I was like, oh my gosh, like they're doing it. They're bringing this Kenner-verse to life on screen. Like this is like 7-year-old me sitting at my desk, 29 or 30 years old at this point, like was like screaming in my inside.
Yeah. There's something about that specific vehicle. I actually have that one, and I still have it, but let's just say it looks like it kind of like drove off a cliff, lost a bunch of its parts, and then exploded and blew up, and it's on fire. So it's pretty destroyed at this point. I actually have it upstairs in my garage. I recently brought a bunch of my toys back home, and I still haven't cleaned that thing out yet because it's just like a mess, like I said. But that thing was amazing. The net capabilities, the fact that the roof came off, it was so cool.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. Like, I was older by the time he gave me this, right? So like when he gave me this, I was just treating it as like a collector's item, right? So like I never bothered to like really like get down with it and like figure out like, what was meant, because some things you would think you broke it, but you didn't.
No, yeah.
Like so like that's awesome. The roof came off. That's so great.
Yeah, sitting right next to me, I have that little roof, and one of the arms for the net thrower.
Yeah, I want to say the one he gave me, the hinge for the net thrower on one side was like snapped off, but I was like, dude, I don't have one of these, so like if you're really like, you're not gonna take money for this, like I'll give you money for this. No, he's like, that's okay. Wow. I'm like, man, you're the best.
Yeah, that's the thing you can hope for, is like somebody will just gift you these things, or you go to, a yard sale or something like that and just find, a giant collection of Jurassic Park toys and get super lucky. But some of these things are super rare, and that's one of the more awesome vehicles for sure.
Yeah, I feel like as you get towards like Series 2, and it's just because I think Series 2 were normally like, if the stores still had a bunch of back stock of Series 1, they weren't going to order Series 2 or whatever. So, like, only certain stores I feel like had them. Like the Series 2 stuff was really limited where I was at, or my parents just didn't want to get them for me. Like, I sent my mom one day.
You didn't go down those aisles.
Yeah, we just didn't go down those aisles, right? Like, I remember sending my mom a photo of an eBay Gallimimus in the box one day, and I was like, "See, Mom, do you see what you denied your child? This thing could have paid for like a down payment on like a car or something ridiculous." And she was like, "Yeah, whatever. You were 7. I wasn't gonna buy you another one. You had enough."
Yeah, you can't predict it. I was just thinking about it while like preparing this list, that I wish I was like my age now, where I could just kind of go down the aisle and just really, like, as long as I had enough money for that week, I just throw enough in there and just be good. But that's not the case, and it's a shame. We just kind of watched a lot of these sit on the pegs and never took them home.
Yeah, it is what it is, man. So what is your number 4?
My number 4 is actually the Series 1 Velociraptor. I like this thing. I was kind of talking about it before, and we were talking about the posability and all that stuff. And I like it because it's so simple. It looks great. I think it kind of, it's a little different than what we see in the movies, but it well represents a Velociraptor. It's scary. It's got the sickle claws. It's got, the arms look fantastic. They're tiny and they're posed correctly. The teeth are scary. They don't look goofy like some of the raptors do now. Right. The eyes are scary. I love the paint scheme, even though it's a little bit different. But I love these little movements. I'm playing with it right here. It has the little head bob and the snap of the teeth there. I love that, and I love the posability that you can just kind of set it on your desk or wherever I was at the time, and just let it sit there until I was ready to play with it. But I think it's also a great size compared to the humans. I think it's a pretty accurate representation of like how they were in the films. Compared to Grant right now, it's about the same height as him. And I think it's a perfect representation, and it's absolutely one of my favorites, number 4 at least.
Yeah, I like that one because I feel like when we were kids, it was like everybody, if you were going to get, if you're at the store, right, as an adult, and you're going to buy a kid like for a birthday, and you got to keep in mind, these things were like $5 back in the day, So like if you're going to get a kid a birthday gift or whatever, and you don't really maybe know the kid that well, like you were maybe just like invited to their house for like a class birthday or whatever, and you were like, well, I'm going to get this kid a Jurassic Park toy. I feel like the Raptor was like the classic one that you would get them. So when I would have friends over and we would play with these toys, it was like we almost had like our pack of Raptors, which was like just like in the movie, and you could like stand them up and you could like put them like in almost like a, I don't know why we thought maybe this was the case, but like we put them like in a V like type positioning, like like a flying V, like birds, right? Like because that's what supposedly was the case in those movies. Or I shouldn't say supposedly. It's pretty much scientific fact at this point. But at that time that was a pretty revolutionary idea. So we would just like stand them up like in a V position, right? And we're gonna attack or break out of break out of like the compound or something like that. But yeah, that's a classic toy, and all the innards, all the mechanics are like inside, right? So other than the head being on the hinge, any action that toy does, like you don't see it. There's no button.
No, there's just like a little bit of squeezing going on, but that's about it.
Yeah, but like visually, you can't see it's not like a big button on the side.
No, yeah, like the new Raptors have that like light up, glowing, flesh looking part on the side.
I hate that so much.
And the mouth is posed like open fully, like most of the time. And this one, at least you could choose. Like you could kind of do a little snap. You could pose it the way you want. You could make this thing like do a split with its legs and do something ridiculous. This was an awesome toy, and like you said, you could kind of get a bunch of them and just like have a little pack of them, and it was perfect. It's like,
yeah, for sure.
Like I said, there's so many different toys on this list of not even on our list, but just overall. It's impossible to kind of include them all, but this one had to at least get on the list. And I very well could have put any of these, to be honest, like at number 1, and this one is one of those for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you come to me, I was putting my list together, and at first, like I said, I was like, oh, this will be easy. Yeah. If you come to me in a week, I will have a completely different list. I should mention that this one you're talking about is the first one that's got one of these. That on our list anyway that we're talking about is the first one that we're talking about that has the illustration, like collector card that would come with it.
Yeah.
And that illustrator, according to, I want to get my source right here, okay, the Dinosaur Toy Forum. Okay, I looked up this artist. Illustrator's name is Brian Franzak. Okay, and he, I guess, he's a famous paleo artist. I didn't specifically know this. I don't follow paleo art that much, but I've seen some of his other work, and so he did like the first like run of these collector cards, and from what I could tell from like kind of like the making of, he was kind of given like ideas like by Kenner as to what to do, and a lot of these cards are like where I feel like the expanded universe or like the Kennerverse kind of started.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because there would be like imagery that wasn't in the movie, maybe it was in the book. And maybe it was just something that they thought was compositionally like scary or kind of cool looking. Most of my cards survived. I was able to keep them like in sleeves and stuff. I might have lost a couple here and there, but yeah. So that's the first one on our list that actually has that illustrator. And I just want to give that guy a shout out because his artistry like inspired me as a kid to like tell my own stories. Outside of what I saw on screen or whatever. And that one with the raptor is particularly cool because
it's awesome.
He's like looking down the aisle, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's like a dark hallway with some lights above him, and it looks like Grant and Ellie are at the end, and yeah, this thing's going in for the attack.
Yeah, right. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's just like the start of them, because they all come with some sort of card, and whether you got the original, artwork like this, or you got the movie versions, they're all really awesome.
Yeah, they're all great. And what was cool about those was that the numbers didn't duplicate. So now there were the Topps like trading cards back in those days that were kind of just like any movie in the 80s and 90s had like trading cards or whatever that you could get. But these were like their own specific set. So kind of like, I want to say like Disney Infinity does this today. They give like collector cards with their figures. And I think we were into the Toys to Life gaming for about a year or so. And they also give you collector cards. But these ones having the number on them almost made you feel like, as a kid, like, well, I've got 1 and 3. What's toy number 2? I gotta find toy number 2. I gotta have that card. And even if the toy wasn't that great, the artistry on the cards were fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, and this, I mean, it gives you a little bit of stats and stuff on the back, like the size of it, the weight, what it eats and everything. And it was so cool as a kid to kind of have that little baseball card of what this dinosaur was. And, just the ability to learn more, I think was great for kids.
Yeah, and kind of to that point, we were talking a little bit before we started talking about the toys, just about how, like for me, my obsession, especially at work and just in my life in general, but like my obsession with Jurassic Park is, it's almost become like to the point where it's like a character, right? Like when I was in college, I was like, yeah, like, you know, I'm the guy. If you've got any questions about that stuff, like, sure, whatever. But like, as I get older and just like don't care what people think about me, like, I almost play it up like a character at this point. It's gotten to be so outrageous and ridiculous that, like, you know, everyone thinks I know a ton about dinosaurs. Most of my knowledge comes from the back of those cards. So, like, if Kenner didn't produce a toy, I probably don't know how to say the name or, like, you know, or too much more about that particular dinosaur.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of our knowledge is limited to these movies, but these things are particularly awesome. And like this one right here, I'm actually looking at it right now. It says it's, you know, easily distinguished by its low, narrow head. It's also had sharp sickle-shaped claws. So it gives you all these pertinent information that you need to kind of impress your friends.
Yeah, I mean, just even like saying those names, I know there's kind of this joke, and they even make the joke in the book. It's like, you know, yeah, if you're over the age of like 10, you have no idea like how to say this stuff, and it's like,
yeah.
Well, 7 and 8 year olds back in 1993 had Kenner Jurassic Park cards that taught you exactly how to say those names because they had the pronunciations, they had the diet. They think some of the dinosaurs even had like nicknames on them. Yeah, so it was good stuff back in those days. Oh, nice.
Yeah. So that's my number 4. I think it's an amazing toy, but what's your number 3?
All right, so my number 3 is the Series 1 Robert Muldoon. And so I was torn, right? Because there's 2 Robert Muldoons. There's a Series 1 and there's a Series 2. Mm-hmm. Now, the Series 2, I feel like, looks a little more like the actor. But Series 1 had kind of like closer to the outfit that he wore in the movie, like the yellow and the browns and stuff like that. So I ultimately went with Series 1. And what I like about this character is that, again, he comes with the I hope I'm saying his name correctly, Brian Franzak illustration card, where it's just like his legs, but he's like surrounded by a bunch of like little baby tyrannosaurs, which, like, again, not being in the movie, that's like a really cool image, right? You're like, man, I wish that was in a movie. Like, that would be really cool to see, maybe like Owen surrounded by like some baby raptors or something like that, you know, early on in his career with Masrani or whatever. But the toy itself, I chose it because I feel like he was basic, and I think that's kind of the theme of like some of our favorites were that, you know, his arms very, you know, straight and stiff. His legs very straight and stiff. You know, he's not posed at all, and I feel like he was kind of the ultimate toy, like hero-ish, you know, to be like, yeah, he can like drive the Jeep because he has 2 arms that stick out straight in front of him. You know, and he comes with is it a rocket launcher?
Yeah.
Let's see. I can't see this too large. I should say that I am on jptoys.com.
Of course, yeah. We're both kind of referencing.
Are we referencing the same website?
Yeah,
okay,
you
cool.
got it.
Yeah,
There's no other place.
Yeah, I mean, I got to give those guys a shout out. So if you haven't been there, you should definitely check it out. But because they've got like a database of any like Kenner and Hasbro based toys, not too much of the other merchandise, but these guys definitely know their stuff. But yeah, and then he comes with a baby Tyrannosaur, which again, never mentioned in the movie. There was never a Tyrannosaur hatchling in the book, but gosh darn it, they decided to give you a baby Tyrannosaur with a toy, and it was, you know, it was awesome.
Yeah. I really love this figure. And you're right. He was kind of like the coolest dude. He looked tough. You know, he was that guy that you threw into the Jeep who was going to save the day or do whatever. He's got his awesome like belt going down his shorts and that knife on the side of his leg. He is a complete awesome character.
You know, he is like what, you know, we were talking about how, man, I wish they would just redo these molds for these new movies. This is the Owen Grady figure, like that we all, because I mean, he's got the same getup, right? Like, oh well, maybe he's got short. This guy's got
just
shorts,
give him some pants because these shorts look ridiculous.
Yeah, swap out some Ian Malcolm legs and we're good to go. Yeah, you know, like if you could like almost repaint this guy, he's pretty darn close to
you're right.
To Owen Grady.
He does kind of look like him too.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's my number 3.
All right.
We're moving on to your number
my
3,
number
right?
3, yeah. Actually, I'm going to go a little bit of a different route here. Let me just grab my number 3 at the moment, and there's a few of them. So, my number 3 is, as you were discussing with the ones that came along with all the humans, is all the baby dinosaurs, or the hatchlings. These things...
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I love these hatchlings. They are so cool. And I think they were kind of necessary. Like you said, you never had those little, baby ones before, but now we do. We have... I don't know which one came with which at this point. I've got a whole bunch of them in my hand. And, let's talk about that Stegosaurus, for instance. That thing is just so cool. And it's the cutest darn thing there is. And it's so awesome to kind of have these little figures all lined up, and you'd put them in a certain part of your own little park. I love this little Brachiosaurus. I forget who that came with, but that thing is so awesome. Let's see, what else do I have? I have the Stegosaurus, the Brachiosaurus. I have a little Dilophosaurus. They're not standing up. I have a T-Rex, but it's different than the one that you were just looking at with Muldoon.
Which one? What T-Rex do you have right now?
It's like a grayish color with a green stripe on its back.
I think that's the Ian Malcolm Lost World one. Yeah, that's actually a really nice little mold.
Yeah.
That looks pretty darn close to what I think a baby T-Rex would look like.
Mm-hmm.
Barring the one from the movie, of course. But
yeah, it definitely looks
that one was
more
really good.
like
And it has the cast, right?
No, this does it. Oh yeah, you're right. It does.
It's got a little cast molded right onto that leg.
It does, yeah. Yeah, it's got a few little bars on there. It looks more like a T-Rex than the Muldoon would. The Muldoon one kind of looks a little messy. It's a little oddly shaped, and the teeth look super goofy. This one at least has a good set of teeth on it, even though its mouth's closed.
Yeah, that's why when I was debating between the Series 1 and the Series 2, that T-Rex is not my favorite. The Series 2 Muldoon with the little raptor, that raptor is on point. Whoever was in charge of molding that, and designing that one, that little raptor guy, they did a fantastic job with that one. We're talking a 2-inch little piece of plastic toy, but the artistry that they were able to get into that particular toy was great. The same with that Stegosaurus you're talking about. Mm-hmm. It looks like a baby Stegosaurus, I guess what I would imagine. Nowadays, today, they don't bother with the detail in some of these smaller figures, but
the detail is there. All these what do you call them? The little spikes that are coming out the back, the plates. They just look. They've got all little spots on them. They've got the lines and different textures on there, and it's got spots all over the body. It has the eyes painted. Everything's great. It's painted really well, and it's got the JP logo on there, and a lot of that stuff would be missing today. I know they did come out with a bunch of little toys for Jurassic World, but they didn't have the detail that these things have. Like this Brachiosaurus, it's an awesome, cool, teal kind of greenish blue, and it's got a nice smile on it. It's got the foot standing up in the front. It's just so cool, and there's a little Pteranodon here. I also have one of my favorites is the Pachycephalosaurus. It's got this awesome little stance that it's in, and its head is down, ready for action. The coloring is
that's
so
a great
cool.
one.
Yeah, the coloring is great. It's got the red head with the white dome, and the green and the green stripes. And then the Triceratops one is so awesome as well. Like I said, I don't know. These all they all came from different lines, maybe even the Lost World as well. But since they all came with somebody, I kind of included them all together. But they're all so awesome.
Yeah, you mentioned the smaller ones that they have. Are you talking about for Jurassic World? Are you talking about the ones that come in a tube or in a little baggie or something like that?
I think they came in small bags. They're not the standard that these are at.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this, and this just goes to the almost as praise for the detail they put into these toys in the 90s, was that these hatchling dinosaurs that came with the Series 1 and Series 2 stuff, they look like baby versions of the bigger counterparts, right? So when you look at this, you're if this is a Saturday morning cartoon, This is like the baby. It's a little guy. It's got a bigger head than its body. It's got like bigger eyes. It's maybe a little. Dopey's a bad word, right? But like a bad word to describe it. But like it maybe looks like it's like a little wobbly on its feet or whatever. Kind of playing up to the fact that it's a baby. And then you have today these Jurassic World, like these really small ones. They're just small versions of like an adult dinosaur. I feel like, if that makes any sense, right? Like,
yes,
you look at ducks today. You can tell even just by looking at the head, right, of a baby duck and an adult duck. You can tell which one is which.
Yeah,
and I feel like you could do that in the 90s with these particular like little minifigures.
Yeah. And they're solid. They're a great little toy. They're not a piece of junk. Like, and they stand up. They stand up pretty well. Most of these ones, I think, some of them are a little tough. Like the Dilophosaurus kind of keeps falling over, but they're great. Like the Pteranodon standing up. Let's say the Pachy is standing perfectly, and let's try the Rex standing perfectly. So the only one that's having an issue is this Dilophosaurus.
Yeah, the Dilophosaurus never stood up very well.
Yeah, I don't know. It keeps falling over. But these, I had to put these at number 3. Like I said, some of them are kind of mixed in with the Lost World ones. But overall, I think the hatchlings from this initial line are so cool. And my favorite being that Stegosaurus.
I remember as a kid, it was like, if I had to go somewhere, and it was like, oh man, I can't take like all my Jurassic Park dinosaurs, but I can fit a few of these hatchlings in my pocket, and just make stuff up in the car or whatever. The fantastic little sculpts they would give you, and they just don't do that today, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm looking at them right here, and the Brachiosaurus came with Harpoon Harrison, one of the dino trackers. That one is another one of my favorites, just the quality of it, the look of it. Let's look at Jaws Jackson here. He came with the Dilophosaurus. It's kind of like orange with a black stripe, and it's got the red accents, or they look kind of pink now, but yeah. So
right, for sure.
These things, this first line, I loved having these during that Jurassic Park toy line from Series 1 and 2, because like you said, we needed that different size scope, because we had the big ones, the really big ones, and then maybe the medium-sized ones, but these little ones, they needed their own little space, and they were great to have along.
Yeah, you talk about scope, and I feel like that's another thing that toy, and I understand it, right? Like maybe the toy market is down a little bit today because kids just got so much going on with like their iPads, and I say this like I'm like 100 years old, like I've got an iPad, like I'm not. Days. Yeah, exactly, right. But like I feel like when I was a kid and you go to the store, it was like, the T-Rex was big because T-Rexes are big, and the Raptor was a small toy because Raptors are smaller than a T-Rex, right? And like now it's like you go to the store for Jurassic World, and it's like, oh, there's the big Indominus Rex, there's the middle-sized Indominus Rex, and there's the small Indominus Rex, and that's really, I think, to hit like maybe like price points, right? Like, well, the kid wants an Indominus Rex, but I can't like afford the $60 one or the $50 one, so I'll maybe like, and I don't want to get them the small like $10 one, so maybe I'll like settle here in the middle and do the $20 one or whatever like that. And I understand that as a business perspective, but something about being a kid and just like maybe being terrified that like you were never going to have a Tyrannosaurus Rex or whatever. And I'm sure there are kids out there that didn't have that, that were really into Jurassic Park, and it just boiled down to he was just too expensive, and that's too bad. Like, but that's unfortunately the way it was in the 90s,
Yeah. I think that's the problem. Today, what they need to do is offer different options. There's a few options, but like you said, you had one size, really. I mean, there was maybe a few that kind of had their like the smaller T-Rex or whatever, but right. You really only had one version of that dinosaur. And it's great to have all these different options, like the different, you had the big T-Rex, you had the smaller, velociraptors and stuff like that. You also had the electronic ones, which you could, purchase as well, but they were all different. So at least there was variation. At least, today there's not a lot of, a ton of variation. Like you said, there's this one, and this one. They're all the same dinosaur, but they're different sizes. It's very confusing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, look, I'm not trying to like harp on Hasbro. I think like some of those things, and Hasbro obviously has, they've got so many things going on. Star Wars is obviously their number one,
yeah,
right? You guys have talked. Yeah, you guys have talked about it here on the podcast that Star Wars obviously. Who is not going to invest all their resources in Star Wars, right? Like there is zero blame whatsoever for that. And I think like the Ankylosaur toy for Jurassic World is awesome. Like I feel like it fits with the Kenner line. The Ceratosaur toy is another great one, right? It's got this great nod to Jurassic Park 3 and Operation Genesis you guys even mentioned it here with the red head, like that's such a cut for fans, right? But yeah, it's just whatever Kenner was doing back in those days was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I think they just need to take a little bit of a cue, hopefully, for the next set of toys that come out. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to see, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see where that franchise goes. I have no idea.
No, nobody knows.
Yeah, but all right. So does that bring me to my number 2?
Yes.
All right. Let me look here. My number 2 and my number 1. I want to make sure. Because I feel like I'm making
you might switch them up, right?
I feel like I'm making a bold statement by saying that the electronic Tyrannosaurus Rex is my number 2.
Ooh.
Yeah, right? Like blasphemy, maybe? No, but so and here's why for me that this is number 2. Now, I'm 7 years old, 1990s. This Toys R Us. Target didn't have toys. There was no Walmart in the Detroit area of Michigan in 1993. So it was Toys R Us or it was nowhere. And from June from 93 until December of 93, I knew the shape of that. Well, it was a box, right? So obviously I wasn't that smart on that end. It was a box, but I knew the size of that box. I knew that. The front window, you could like reach inside that box and like there was like a hole, right? And you could test out that Tyrannosaur. And I remember, under the tree, Christmas Eve, someone pulling out that box, and it was just like I knew that this was going to be the T-Rex that like my park in my basement was missing. I had the Dino Damage T-Rex, and he was fantastic, right? Like, no qualms about that, but I knew that this was like the big one, right? And I remember lifting my thumb up into the air and just jamming it down into that hole to tear that paper open. And thank God that was the toy, because I probably would have broke my thumb if it wasn't. But now, again, this has another one of those illustrated cards. If you had the Series 1, I think Series 2 got the movie card as a re-release, but the only reason this is at number 2, and again, blasphemy, right? But this thing broke constantly. And I want to say that my final T-Rex that my parents got so sick of taking it back to Toys R Us, basically the arms were always breaking off, and the lever inside when you make the noise, we should say this thing had like a stomping sound and like a roaring sound, right? Like this was no joke of a toy. When I would push that lever, I pushed that thing so many times that eventually it stuck, and she would just keep roaring unless you took the battery out. And so that's the only reason that this thing is at number 2, is because the arms fell off. The lever was constantly breaking on mine. I think I took it back like 3 times, like, oh my gosh, like my T-Rex is broken. Like, what, you guys, this is like my T-Rex, And I think after like the 3rd one, my parents just like ripped out the battery and were like, deal with it. Yeah, this toy is obviously never going to survive a child. But yeah, man, that was such a great toy. And she was like the red, and just like in the, I hadn't read the book up until at this point, but just like in the book, that reddish color. I remember like trying to even out that tail, because the tails came like bent.
Yep.
Inside the box. So
yeah, because it was kind of.
So yeah, man, I love that one.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned that card as well. That is such an awesome design on that card, as it's showing like the scene from the movie. I guess you've got the Rex coming through the fence there and about to attack the car. But it's this Rex, which is really cool. You get that book scenario.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I don't know. I can't even like. I'm looking at a photo of it right now because my Rex is all bandaged up, arms are busted off. I eventually, I shouldn't say I got another one. I may not have told a friend that he left his at my house at one point when I was a kid. But like my original Rex is all bandaged up. I think there's duct tape around the legs because the legs were like splitting off at some point. That was like the Woody or the Buzz Lightyear, right? Of my childhood. Like, it was like every kid my age until about Power Rangers coming out. Every kid my age wanted this T-Rex. And that Christmas my aunt got it for me, and man, that's just such a good memory. Like the nostalgia is there.
Yeah, everything about this one is 100% nostalgia, and I'll say a little bit more about it in a few, but I agree, it's a great spot. Even number 2, it's pretty good for it.
Okay, so what is your number 2?
Well, my number 2 is not this one, so it kind of gives it away where that one sits. But my number 2 is actually, I have it right here. It's the Triceratops from Series 1. This thing,
it's a great toy.
It's so awesome. It's giant, and it's obviously not the same size as the Rex. The Rex is bigger, but in terms of scale of these different dinosaurs, this thing is really big, and it's appropriate too. Compared to the humans.
For sure.
It's the right size, and the battle wounds that I really abuse these things. So aside from the actual dino damage on the side, mine is like destroyed. I actually did like a little review video of actually the Lost World Triceratops with Victoria's Cantina on YouTube, and my bigger one made an appearance, and you can see the thing is just like beat up. I mean, the color is still pretty decent, but the horns are all scratched up. So it basically tells you that this thing is something that you would just demolish into, vehicles and all the different dinosaurs and humans. And it has this little, this head thrusting action where you can, kind of smash into things. It still sort of works, actually. Yeah, squeezing it. Yeah, it's working really well, actually. So I would destroy this thing. I would smash it into all the vehicles I had. One of the things I really like about this and that Red Rex is the skin on it. It's more realistic than any of the others, and it's rubbery and it has great texture. And to me, it looks like a Triceratops. It looks like that. It's basically the one in the movie. It's a little tiny bit different color, but it gives off that same feeling. And I absolutely love this thing. It's really awesome, and I think the size is what does it for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say this was the toy that, because it had that ramming head action, and because I think maybe as kids we all maybe associated the Triceratops with like a rhino or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's it.
This was the one that you just. Man, I felt you got to feel sorry for those cars at this point because you just rammed the head, and the head is hard plastic, right? And the body is like the softer rubber.
Yeah.
Man, you just ran that thing into the side of those cars, and which is weird. Let me ask you this: do you know why there's a red stripe on the side of the Jurassic Park Jeep?
Not particularly. No, I guess.
So this is totally weird. I just found this out like a few weeks ago in the book. For whatever reason, and we were playing wrong, man, the Triceratops will not charge a red stripe for whatever reason. They didn't know why. Yeah, they couldn't figure it out in the book, but they were like, this is why we have the red stripe on the side of the car, because the Triceratops won't.
Huh.
But so anyway, we were playing wrong, but like who cares, right? Yeah.
Yeah, this smashed all the vehicles. It smashed the Jeep, the Explorer, the one you were talking about before. It smashed everything. It's just like, and it like I'll admit it right now. My sister had this giant playhouse for Barbie. This thing was literally like 4 feet tall and maybe 3 foot wide. It would like split apart. It had all these giant things, and I would use it as like a fort or a base or whatever, and put all my figures on the inside. And the dinosaurs would just kind of go in and attack that building try to smash it apart and knock it down. And this was one of the culprits.
Yeah, man, that's just such a fantastic toy, and I gotta say, like, it was like any excuse to come up with something for it to smash, setting up boxes is like a barrier, yes. Or, I don't know. I think we had talked before, and you hadn't read the comics, but in the comics in the 90s, Topps was like releasing like little cards with them, and one of the cards was an illustration of. You gotta think like maybe like profile, right, of a Triceratops ramming a Jeep, and the Jeep is up on its side, and there's a guy up on top of the Jeep like trying to lasso this Triceratops as it's just like flipping over his car, and that image like still like it was almost kind of like in the Lost World when the Triceratops like breaks out and starts flipping things over, but because this is a card, right, you can like really look at that image and be like, man, if I worked at this park and I had to deal with this is not a fun animal, to want to have to deal with, and there was there was little baby hatchling ones like you were talking about that was the same color scheme, the rubber skin. Again, I was saying earlier that I'm pretty sure that obviously that this toy line was being manufactured prior to the movie's release, and so for some of these they did have like illustrations from like Stan Winston Studios and stuff, and I want to say this is probably the first one we've talked about today that I feel like looks like the Jurassic Park like dinosaur, right? Like Jurassic Park dinosaurs have their own style, right? We know them, and if we see pictures of them versus other dinosaurs, and this one personifies that ILM Stan Winston Studio style of Jurassic Park, and it looks almost exactly like the previous art, and for sure looks really close to the one in the film.
Yeah, it's kind of got the little beak is like open, and it's kind of like you saw it in the film. That's one of the great things about this, is you could just lay this thing on its side and recreate that scene out of the movie perfectly. It kind of looks a little dazed, like it's sick and laying on its side. But yeah, it's pristine. It's just such a great toy. I don't know. There's not much more you can say about how awesome it is. I will talk about the card, because we've been kind of talking about those as well. But the original one is actually a really awesome card. It's a complete opposite of what you remember from the film. This the original artwork card is actually the Triceratops like kind of running after Grant, and he's in his traditional clothing, and it actually looks like him quite a bit, but this thing is charging after him. But on the other hand, the movie card is like it's a shot from the movie, and actually it's Ellie kind of like putting her hand on the Triceratops, and that does not look like her to me. That does not look like Laura Dern, but I guess it is. I have to see the card again. Yeah, it's very funny. It must be just an odd shot because it looks like some other actress.
Huh, that's interesting. I didn't get my first Triceratops until the Series 2 with the re-release, so all I ever had was the movie card until one day, like, I was just on eBay, and a guy was selling his Kenner cards like individually for like $2 or $3 a piece, and I eventually did snatch up the original illustration card. My as far as the toys are concerned, my recollection of a Triceratops card was with the Ellie action figure, where she's like down, she's kind of like in the grass down on her knees, and she's like getting ready to like shoot her grapple hook or whatever, or tranquilize this Triceratops, and that Triceratops looks mad, you could kind of tell, like, even before I saw the movie, I was like, oh, this is like a tough woman, this is a woman that's going to get out there, and, she's got like zero fear, and I think we have this argument. I shouldn't say we have this argument. There's definitely this call today for strong female characters, and I feel like because this was like I want to say adult-oriented movie that I saw as a kid, like I guess like Laura Dern was like my first like experience seeing like a strong woman on the screen. There's even that line in the whole movie where she's like, oh my gosh, really, you don't want me to go because like I'm a woman? Like that's ridiculous, And I remember thinking like, man, I gotta get this Ellie Sattler. They don't make female action figures today for these lines, but like I remember as a kid being like, dude, I gotta have the Ellie Sattler action figure because that girl is, she's a badass, right? Like, she's getting ready to take on this Triceratops by herself. Like that's just, I don't know, that's a memory I have.
I'm looking at this card, and it's probably one of the better ones overall. It's basically like the typical Ellie look that you have, a little bit longer hair maybe, but she has a grappling hook and she's shooting it at a Triceratops. It's an insane image, and can you imagine like actually getting this kind of shot in the film? That would have been out of control.
That, one of my favorite things, and Colin did it in Jurassic World, and Spielberg did it a little later. They would any time that they get these toys into the movies, and I'm talking like, the toy was created first, right? Or the design was created first, and then they put it into the movie. I feel like that's such a great nod to like my childhood. So like in The Lost World, when that Parasaurolophus rears up and all those guys go flying because they've just got like little ropes around its neck. That reminds me of like the original Stegosaur card that this artist did, where they're trying to wrangle a Stegosaur, and the original Pteranodon, which is not my number one, but the original Pteranodon, the blue one, was the first Jurassic Park anything that I ever owned, and I remember that card was so cool because he was like flying above this guy who's just way down there, and this guy's got like this gun now, and he's gonna shoot this thing with like a trank or whatever. And I wouldn't say that the Pteranodon scene was like my favorite in Jurassic World. I kind of thought like, well, like cool, like Pteranodons are kind of like the obligatory like flying dinosaur, and maybe Jurassic Park 3 wasn't everyone's favorite, so they decided to do it again. But when those guys like whipped out like their trank darts, and the camera was like coming in from up high, and like you could see I was like, oh my gosh, like they put one of my favorite images from my childhood into a film 22 years later or whatever like that. And I really give them props when they do that stuff, because for as much flack I think sometimes as Jurassic World gets, a lot of people don't realize that I feel like that movie was made for really hardcore fans. There's a lot of stuff in there. A friend of mine today at work was like, oh, so like what do they talk about on a Jurassic Park podcast? He's like, there's only like the 4 movies and like the books. I'm like, oh dude, you have no, like, there's comic books, there's video games, there's collector cards, there was trading card sets, there were card games, there was just all this stuff. And anytime they mention those things in the movies, man, that's when it just feels like 20 years of collecting like paid off,
Yeah, I honestly didn't even realize this. I don't know. I think I had this figure, the Pteranodon figure, but I think that's one that kind of broke on me, and I probably ended up throwing it out, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The wings were kind of separated there. But you're right. The great thing, let me give it up for jptoys.com again. You can kind of go and look at all these cards, and you can see the movie versions, you can see the original artwork versions, and this one is straight out of Jurassic World. You're right. It's identical. Like, you see the guy in that pose, he's like reaching up, he's about to shoot this thing as it's flying in. It looks identical, right out of Jurassic World. That's awesome.
Yeah, I remember it because that was my first like toy. That was my first anything Jurassic Park. Like, my mom got it for me. I think she was probably just trying to like maybe keep me happy or something like that. And that's where the obsession began. Was with that particular figure, and I still keep mine. Like, he's all beat up and his paint's chipping, but that card, I remember going to see The Lost World and being like, man, I wish they would have that guy shooting that Pteranodon. And then I got the Pteranodon at the end. I was like, okay, darn it, maybe next time. In Jurassic Park 3, man, I wish I'd have that guy shooting that Pteranodon. And then it didn't happen. They did the scene, but they didn't do that exact thing. And then Jurassic World comes in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got the guy shooting the Pteranodon.
You got like 10 guys.
Moment.
It was awesome.
Yeah. It was like payoff for 20 years. Like, I didn't just get one guy. I got like 10 guys.
And in your favorite pose, they were in that flying V pose, shooting down Pteranodons.
Totally.
It was 100% a toy moment that they're missing opportunities here. Like, come on.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I won't get started on that Pteranodon toy. I was like, oh, it's so much bigger than that helicopter. It doesn't make any sense.
Oh no, yeah, it makes no sense. But anyway, that's going back to that Triceratops. That was my number 2. So I guess that brings us to your number 1.
All right, now my number 1, I gotta say, I had issues choosing because my number 1 is one that is considered rare. Okay, is in the collector's market, I'll say, right?
Okay.
Even though I'm sure everyone who sells JP toys on eBay is listening to this and is gonna start jacking up the prices, of course, right? But they've already done that with Jurassic World coming out. But I never had this one as a kid, but I remember seeing it on the shelf. And the box art is by, I'll throw out another artist, Larry Selman. I hope I pronounced his last name right. But he was an artist that did a lot of the, if they couldn't show the action figure because maybe you had to like assemble it or whatever, they would do like this really elaborate illustration. And Larry did a lot of the Series 2 illustrations. And so I'm choosing my number 1, which was like a coveted toy as a kid, which is I hope I pronounce this right because dinosaur fans are gonna freak out on me if I don't. The Quetzalcoatlus. All right. Now I saw a documentary, and I'll just gotta call it Cats because that's what the documentary called it, right? But it is this big flying pteranodon looking thing, and it's called Firebeak is like its code name, and it's this big black pteranodon looking dinosaur, and it's got this big red fiery looking beak, and in its claws he's carrying one of the dino trackers away, which again, another great Jurassic World thing, with the dino trackers and all that stuff. But he's carrying this guy away, and I remember one day in college, just like, I had a few extra dollars, like I'll just get on eBay and see, like, what can I find that I can maybe add to my collection, like toy wise. And a woman had put on her eBay thing because she just doesn't know what these things are called, but she just puts on Pteranodon, and she didn't put a photo on the listing on the outside, like when you first see it. And I was like, okay, like, yeah, I could use another Pteranodon. Mine's all beat up. And I go in, and she has got this Quetzalcoatlus or Ketz or whatever it's called, and she has it for like almost nothing.
Wow. And
I for a solid week, like we didn't have this is, I'm old, right? We didn't have cell phones, or not smartphones anyway, when I was in college, right? So like, I remember like getting out of class and like running to like a computer station and like checking my eBay profile, and then like, okay, no one's bid on it because no one knows that she's like mislabeled this thing, right? And then, for a solid week I did that because I'm kind of strategic about eBay or whatever. So I remember winning that thing, and when I got that, the 7-year-old child, sitting in my dorm at Grand Valley State University was just like so elated that I had won this thing on eBay. And unfortunately, at the plight of a woman who I was bidding back and forth, and she wrote me, she's like, "Do I have something here?" And I'm like, "You have no idea what you have. Like, sorry, like." But I wasn't like mean about it. I was just like, like, you do have something, like, and I think I did pay a fairly high price, but it wasn't like what they were all going for, like if you had like labeled it correctly, And so that's why that's my number 1, right? Because I remember seeing that toy, not being able to afford it, or parents not willing to get it for me, and then just kind of coming full circle, 15 years later or whatever in college, and just kind of that feeling I had when, I finally got it. And, I try not to be too materialistic, but I do get really materialistic when it comes to this Jurassic Park stuff, because the art that goes into these was just so good. Now, unfortunately, the one that I had, like, let's see, this one, brand new. I don't have the box. Oh, gosh, I wish I had that box. That artist is phenomenal. But it also came with like capture gear, and I want to say by Series 2 they were doing capture gear with all these dinosaurs, which was pretty cool. And I don't have the card, unfortunately, but he's got like talons that you can like wrap around actually like human characters, and then like he'll rip them up into the sky or whatever, like in Jurassic World. So, and this guy was big. He's I didn't know, but he's like the same mold as the Lost World Pteranodon figure, like that big blue one. He just has a different head. But yeah, that's my number 1. I say it's rare, but if you can find it, like, that's a great one.
Yeah, that's actually a really awesome pick. I never would have expected that. This is not one that I particularly maybe even knew about as much as a kid. I never had this one. But looking at it more recently, this thing is crazy looking. It's like probably none other dinosaurs in that line, especially. It's crazy, like that head, like a fire beak, it's called. It's really insane, and I like it. Actually has it does look like the I don't know too much about the Lost World Pteranodon, but it looks like the Malcolm jetpack or whatever, the glider pack that he had. Those wings are like fabric wings. Is that what it is?
Yeah. So like essentially what would happen is like the wings would kind of like fold up and clip in behind its legs.
That's what I figured.
And there's like a button on the back that like when you push the buttons, his like wings burst open.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's kind of the same concept as like the Malcolm glider pack. And so oh shoot, there was something else to say about this thing. Oh, so this documentary I saw back in the day, just binge watching Netflix, there's dinosaur documentaries. Sure, I'll watch some of those.
Yeah.
Like, no problem. This thing, when it stood up, was the size of a giraffe.
Wow.
This was a big flying dinosaur. So while I love my original Pteranodon and like, I will treasure that toy, until I just can't anymore. Right. But this one is just, it's a Pteranodon like on steroids. It's just big and it's like huge, and you put it next to the T-Rex and you're like, man, this thing could go up against the T-Rex, right? Like, this is an awesome flying dinosaur. Yeah, so that is why that one is my number one.
The size of that thing is huge. Like, you're right. I think it could be pretty tall. It could be near giraffe size if it stood up. It's probably double one of the human figures at least. Maybe even more.
Oh yeah, I think it's. I want to say if you were to like lay human figures down to its head, like you're looking at like 3 human figures long. Jeez. It was pretty big. But like I'm looking at Jurassic toys, and the retail on this was $14.99. Like, you can't get. Can you even get a Jurassic World toy for $14.99 today?
You can get like, a smaller
the small
one,
ones, right?
But not anything like this intricate, or with all these different grips that it had with the feet and the capture gear on the beak. Like not anything like this. This thing's crazy. So it's huge.
Yeah, it's great. And I didn't pick a nostalgic dinosaur from my childhood from my number one, but this one, I just think it's really cool. I think the artwork is great. The idea of being able to grab a human figure and just like rip them off into the sky, that's awesome. So that's why I chose this as my number one. What's your number one? I got a feeling I know what it is.
Yeah, I think you can guess. It is the original Tyrannosaurus Rex from Series 1. And right before we started, I tucked the battery in as we were talking, and I actually got the stomping feature to still work. So I don't know if you can hear this here.
Oh, seriously?
So I can't believe it actually still works in that sense. The scream doesn't work anymore.
Oh, dude, I have not heard that sound in like 20 years. Like, mine broke, and by the time I got my second one, I would not even put a battery in it because I was like, I do not want another broken one. I don't even know if my good one actually works, because as soon as I got it, I took the battery out and was like, never making the noise. But dude, that's like, what a great sound, but at the same time, what a terrible sound.
Let's see if we can hear it actually right here. Take a listen. Give me one second. Sorry. Well, that's the...
Is that the roar?
Apparently, yeah. This is straight from jptoys.com. It actually does sound
they have the sound effect.
Maybe a mix, yeah. So this thing is just, whether my roar works or not, this is still like my prized possession here. And like you said, this thing, it maybe doesn't hold up as nicely as you'd want it to. Mine, like yours, the leg, oh my god, I'm looking at it now. This is crazy. So my leg came apart, and it has glue coming out the seams because I guess my dad had like glued it back together. And actually, I'm just noticing it now. There's actually a screw. I didn't realize this before, but there is a screw. So I guess my dad screwed it straight into the body to kind of keep the leg in position, and it's holding really well. But this thing is awesome. I have no arms on mine either. Both arms have come off.
Yeah, mine too.
The roar doesn't work.
Mine too.
But overall, this thing is in great condition. Like the skin, it's like that Triceratops one. The skin is fantastic. It has that realistic feel, and the sculpt of the thing is awesome. And it doesn't look like the film Rex, which is fine, but it's still
close,
memorable.
man. It's
close. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think the face is very reminiscent of that Rex. It's got that same sculpt to the eye and everything, and I feel like I'm looking at the face of that Rex, even though the different colors and maybe a slightly different size, but it's right there. And this thing is scary, and I love it. It has this giant stretch of the jaw. It's almost reminiscent of the Indominus Rex, how crazy that thing stretches. But it's such an awesome toy. You can like bend the head. Actually, I'm looking at it now. The neck does kind of have some split seams in there, as I guess from bending it over time. But this thing is very long. It's the tail is still in decent condition here. It does have a little bit of a fold from the box from being in there still. But this thing is just so cool. I love this thing. It's such an iconic piece, and there's no question that I had to have this at my number one, because now I think the playability was perfect on this thing. Even though it fell apart and the roar doesn't work and all this, the legs coming apart, I loved being able to destroy things and grab the vehicles with that jaw, rip them all apart, because they all had those parts that fell apart. You could bite any human and just throw them, and like we talked about, this thing could take on any of the dinosaurs, destroy them, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why it's my favorite one.
Yeah, again, I just want to compare it to like this is the Buzz Lightyear or the Woody of our youth, right? Like in the Jurassic Park community. Like I remember sitting at Toy Story 3 with my wife. This is bad. I don't know, was she my wife or my fiance or girlfriend at the time, and like my mom. And I remember like at the end of that movie, just like I'm just this like 20-some-year-old guy just bawling, and they look at me, and my mom looks at my wife, and she's just like, yeah, he's thinking about that T-Rex. And I was like, the T-Rex, like I could never give away my T-Rex, That's just like, that's exactly how I feel when I think about that toy, and like the memories that I had with that was I just went everywhere with it, everywhere. Like Woody has a sewn-on arm, and my T-Rex has like duct tape legs. Woody is missing his gun. My T-Rex is missing her arms. It's just like that is like the toy that just got dragged around everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
I
got
the most play.
It definitely did, and it shows it. I don't know if this thing, if it was made poorly or if we just abused it so much that we just basically destroyed it, but it's such an awesome
abuse,
piece.
Man.
It is abuse.
It had to have been abuse. It had to have been abuse. Like
it's just such an awesome piece. It's not like consistent at all. If you look at it, it has like dots on. You can almost feel these little dimples, but they're sporadic. They're not like consistent at all.
Yeah.
You find them in different spots of the body. Some of them are in straight lines. Some of them are all over the place. It actually has all these different like. Wrinkles and textures and veins and different, laps of skin. And it's out of control detailed. You stretch open this mouth and you can see the tongue looks legit like a tongue. Like, I honestly think this is an animal's tongue.
Sure.
The mouth is grooved inside. The teeth look amazing. Everything about this thing is perfect. And you had brought up a good point about Toy Story 3, because, you first off, you see, to spoil Toy Story 3 if you haven't seen that already, but you see them almost go into that incinerator, and you start to feel everything.
Yeah, that's where I started getting the feels, right? It was like,
and then it goes even further by giving away all the toys and letting them, go free to somebody else who actually would use them. And that, I think that's where it, totally hits you again. And I think that's something that made me actually go home to my mom's and go into the basement and dig out all these toys again and just kind of like rummage through them and set them up in a way. And this was like not that long ago. And I exactly. For the first time in a while, dug them out and just sat them there. And I was like, wow, these things, were amazing. And they were my favorite things of all time. And, you can't get much better than, all the ones we've talked about. But this Red Rex is definitely my number one. Yeah,
I regret it now, being an adult and knowing how much the green Explorer is worth.
Oh.
But I used to take my T-Rex's head and bash it into that window, and I broke that window one day. And to this day, it's still got like Scott's masking tape because it broke in like a nice, like just right in half, right?
Yeah.
But as a kid, I remember that was so fun, shoving that thing's head down into that car and like tearing action figures like out of it, right? Mm-hmm. Just the things that they did. And maybe we can touch on this in the future. And the Lost World, that the toys get even more like imaginative to do like things that they could do in the movie, but things like tearing off parts of cars and ripping out wounds in dinosaurs was all things that kind of like I remember from the original Jurassic Park series. And that stuff was just fun, I don't like today where they've got the scratches on the side of the dinosaurs and nothing to cover it up with. Because I'm totally admit I was the OCD kid that never lost the little rubber pieces that went into the dinosaurs. It was like, oh no, I can't, like, without this dinosaur is nothing,
Dude, I wish I don't have. I was just playing with my Triceratops one right here, and all I have is just the exposed ribs or what, the bones and the flesh, and I do not have that little damaged piece, which annoys me. But
like most people don't, and that's. I mean, look, my collection is worth almost nothing because it's all out of the box. Even if I get stuff today, I don't find stuff in the box. What's the fun in that? Like, no. These things. Look, I'm only here for so long, and when I'm dead and gone, hopefully, maybe someone will want to get some use out of them. Hopefully my wife has the sense to maybe keep some of the stuff, in our family or whatever.
Yeah.
But when I'm dead and gone, this stuff is gonna be worth nothing to me. So, why even as an adult, like, just enjoy it now. Like, yes, the boxes are great, and I've got a few things in the box because I thought the artwork on the box was great. But toys are they're meant to be played with, man, and these toys definitely personify the idea of like play. When I was a kid, so those are my top 5. No regrets, right?
No, not at all. I think I narrowed mine down as best as I could. I do have. I just want to touch on these. I'm not going to detail them, but I have 5, I believe, honorable mentions. I'll just run down them real quick. My first one is the Series 1 Coelophysis. You have the two characters there that you could pose the next.
Those are great.
I love those ones. Another one is that one that you touched upon, the Series 2 Capture Cruiser. I absolutely love that. Mine's destroyed, but that's okay. It means I played with it.
Yep.
Series 2, I got the Harpoon Harrison character. It's one of the ones that's not related to the film at all in any way, but he's such a cool character with no shirt. He's got a vest.
It's related now because Jurassic World is the Dino Trackers. So, with the ACUs. So again, legitimizing those old toys that we had.
Yeah. Fourth one here is the electronic Dilophosaurus. I absolutely love the design on this thing. Mine actually cracked in half. I have it right here, but it's glued back together. And I love that it came with that frill. That thing was amazing.
Yeah. That was the only way to get that frill back in the day.
I know, yeah. The original one didn't come with that, so it was a nice addition. And the last one I have here is the Series 2 Strike Cycle, which is one of those, Dino Tracker vehicles. It's just a motorcycle with the sidecar that had the missile launcher on it.
That was like the bad guys, right? Like,
it might have been like the Raiders.
Evil Raiders?
Yeah, the Raiders, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this thing,
those guys
I love that.
were cool.
It's so cool, and it's got a really awesome design. It has like the bones on the the wheel wells and everything. It's so cool.
Yeah. That series 2, when I kind of found out, or when they announced that they were doing like Owen was going to be kind of working with raptors, and there's going to be the ACU or whatever, I was like, oh cool, they're doing dino trackers versus I assumed at the point like dino raiders, right? Like someone was going to be trying to like take the Indominus or something. I didn't know what was going on, right? Mm-hmm. But those toys, the series 2 especially, felt very like Saturday morning cartoon. And my original thought and desire for Jurassic World was that because they've kind of painted themselves or backed themselves into a corner again by destroying the park, I thought they were going to like do like a serial kind of like situation where every movie was going to be like, you just kind of accept that things go wrong at Jurassic Park, and every movie was going to be like focused on a specific dinosaur, and like the dino trackers were going to be going after dinosaurs. So I think that's where I wanted the movies to initially go. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, Jurassic World is great. Like, I love that movie, but I originally thought that's where the movie was going to go, and I feel like this toy line kind of, the series 2 with the trackers and the raiders like really opened up a lot of ability to tell stories as a kid. Yeah,
even in the Lost World, they kind of tied in. Like you had all that, the InGen group in there, and it kind of ties into that as well.
Yeah, totally. It did. Now was that all 5?
Yeah, that's my quick 5 honorable mentions.
Okay, so let's see. I got 3, but you had 5, so I'm gonna add a 4th one. Let's see. So my 4th one is the red and gray Jeep. And my memory of that is I lost that hood like in a move when I was a kid, and I just remember just being so bummed. It's on my shelf. It's got no hood, because you can replicate that sequence from the movie where he runs under that log and smashes the windshield. And just one day on eBay, someone had that hood for like I'm embarrassed to say a stupid amount of money, and I was like, yes, I am complete. My Jeep is done. Justification for being a terrible kid. But all right, so then let's see. My number 2 is the basic Raptor. Again, for all the reasons we discussed. The Dilophosaurus, but mine is the one that doesn't have the frill. It's the one that spits the water.
Okay,
and the reason this gets on my honorable mentions is because I have the Universal lithograph set, which is like all this Dan Winston Studio like previs images, and if you put this thing next to that image, it is, I guess the pun, it is a spitting image of that Stan Winston design. It's the colors 100% exact, the stance 100% exact. Like this is like a Stan Winston toy, which nowadays to get a toy modeled after like a Stan Winston figure, or like even like Pixar, you spend a lot. Like they're that's a big market, right? And this was like $5, so
can't beat that.
Again, just a fantastic toy. I have the Triceratops again for this 100% the same exact reasons as you discussed. That thing was big, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, huge.
And that clears me up for honorable mentions.
Yeah, like we said, there's too many. We could literally go down the entire line and just say what we like about them all. But that's why it's tough to just narrow it down to 5, and it kind of makes it more interesting. But that's another thing is I actually reached out to a lot of people on the internet. I reached out to Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So I wanted to kind of go through those real quick, touch upon what you guys thought.
I hope someone gave some love to that compound, because we did not.
No, we didn't.
I love that toy, but I don't think it makes my top 5. You can still play Jurassic Park without that compound, but I hope someone did in this list.
Yeah, well, you're in luck, because these first 2 I have here from Facebook. We got Christopher W. here on Facebook says, number 1, the T-Rex. Number 2, the Jungle Explorer. Number 3, the Command Compound. Number 4, Velociraptor non-electronic. And number 5, Bush Devil Tracker. So there you go.
That's how you do
it.
Yeah, when you're a kid in your basement, man, that's how you play Jurassic Park right there. Is those particular toys. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Alicia here from the dinosaurstop.com has number 1, the Big Rex. Let's see, number 2, the juvenile T-Rex. Number 3, Velociraptor non-electronic. number 4, Dilophosaurus electronic, and of course number 5, the compound. So there's
awesome.
2 right there with
Cool.
the compound.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't include that. To be honest, I never actually had that one, so I couldn't really rightfully, get it on my list. But that's the good thing about these is we all had different toys, so we can all choose different ones. Like we said, it's all about nostalgia. So I'm not going to pick the ones that you had. You're not going to pick the ones that I had. So it's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah, I didn't. I had it as a kid. I got it as like a. It was a Christmas gift for sure, right? Because I think if we look at that, I think that retailed for $50. Oh my gosh, it retailed for $50. That's like you can't even get the big. Can you get the big Indominus for $50? I'm in Canada, so all the prices are higher.
Oh yeah,
can you get the Indominus for $50 today?
Yeah, I think it's maybe 39 or something like that, or 29.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's right, it's up there, but it's not, and it's not $50. But yeah, that's tough because I mean there is one set that's similar, but not to that scale. But that you can't beat that compound.
That was a great toy with the computer that would like talk to you and like it would tell you like, oh, something's breaking out, and it had an alarm, and you could like shove the T-Rex's head through like the walls and through the doors, and like it would knock over the character over the balcony.
Yeah, that's
that was a great toy. I think the only reason I didn't put it on there was, like I said, I feel like as a kid you could like if you had it, awesome, like that was like the thing to have. But I feel like you could probably play Jurassic Park without it, but that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah, I love actually what about that is that like you could put all the figures in there. You can have like little Tim in there, running some sort of crazy equipment, and it's ridiculous, but it's like the commercial set. Like you'd see this like 30-second clip of this place being destroyed and dinosaurs breaking out and people pressing buttons, sound effects going off. It's the ultimate like toy for a kid.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's go over.
All right, so who else wrote in?
Yeah, we have some over here on Instagram. So, just refreshing this one. Sorry, it's from James Paul Stevenson. He says, Series 1, Young T-Rex. Series 2, Carnotaurus. Capture Cruiser, Harpoon Harrison, and Series 2, Dilophosaurus. So, there's some new ones in there, and I think a lot of people are now getting on the Young T-Rex. So that's pretty cool. Yeah,
like that one is definitely very inspired by the book, because that's one of the things that they kind of have to overcome, and that is that there's not just a big one, but there's this little one that it's kind of like I think they kind of described it as kind of maybe like a little dumber or whatever. Like at least it felt like it as I was reading it, right? Like he's just a little dumber than the big T-Rex, which kind of makes him even maybe a little more dangerous. Yeah, that was the first T-Rex I had as a kid.
Okay.
And man, I love that toy. That was, unfortunately, I feel like if you have that one, it's like awesome, and then you get that big one, and it's like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but great. And the Carnotaur too.
Yeah.
I think I remember that's when I felt like I was a collector, was when I hunted down that Carnotaur, and I was like, oh no, it's a lot of money, but I'm gonna spend it. Like I really shouldn't, because now I'm gonna be eating pasta all week, but I'm gonna get that stupid dinosaur.
Worth it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Another one here on Instagram is from Jurassic. He says Rexy, Triceratops, Coelophysis, Jungle Explorer, and Carnotaurus. So another great one there, and I like that Coelophysis. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that right. It's been a while since I've heard that pronounced. But those ones,
I think you're saying that right.
I mentioned them on my honorable mentions. Those are two. You get 2 for 1 in that pack, and they're posable. The necks bend, and they're really cool little creatures. And it was the first time we actually saw anything like that, because they weren't in the movie. So that was a really cool piece.
Yeah, I remember that card was kind of like the Gallimimus sequence from the movie, where there's just this swarm of them, and I remember being like, man, that's dangerous looking. Like that's really cool.
And it's something
really
that
cool
they kind of
in those days.
They kind of went with in the Lost World with the compies. It's similar, but these things would be a little bit bigger, I believe.
That's another thing. I was listening to your guys' top 5 Lost World sequences, and there was no love for the compies eating Dieter Stark, and like that is one of my all-time favorite scenes because they're so cute, and then when he like looks at them, they just kind of bob their heads like they're dummies and they don't know what's going on, and then they just swarm and attack. And yeah, I love that sequence.
I know. I gave it to the cuter sequence, even though it's brutal as well. But that, you know, in the beginning when you first meet them, I love that sequence.
Yeah, that's a.
I'm sorry. Moving over to Twitter here, I got a bunch, so I'll try to blow through these ones. Let's see. Justin J. Peterson says, another difficult choice because they're all good. And he says, top 5, Utah Raptor, Carnotaurus, Malcolm, Jungle Explorer, Big T-Rex. Jurassic Wars Review says, number 1, Series 2, Demon Carnotaurus. Number 2, Series 1, Red Rex. Number 3, Series 2, Gallimimus. Number 4, Series 2 Dilophosaurus. Number 5, Dr. Snare with Carnotaurus hatchling. So that's a new one there. We haven't had that one before.
You know, a lot of these Series 2 ones were like, you know, I was in college and just working, and you know, it's like, well, I could eat pasta or I could eat ramen and get dinosaurs. You know, like it was that kind of mentality, right? It was so stupid, but yeah, like, so like I think. What was that guy's name? Snare? They said that was definitely a later in life purchase, but it's a cool toy for sure.
Yeah, and that hatchling is awesome. Yeah,
it is.
Let's see here. Josh Nublar7 says, gonna go all dinosaurs. Number 1, red T-Rex. Number 2, water spinning Dilo. Number 3, Triceratops. Number 4, Carnotaurus. Number 5, Quetzalcoatlus. You know, I don't know how to say that. You don't know how to say that either, really.
That was
Kets,
my number
right?
1. But yeah, Kets. I think. Hey, if the documentary calls it Kets, then that's what I'm gonna go with.
Yeah, we're safe. I'm not any dinosaur expert, and especially not how to pronounce any. So Quetzalcoatlus. No, I thought I had it, but nope, not at all.
Nope, you're out. Just Kets.
Fossil Box here says the young T-Rex that was all rubbery. I took that thing everywhere. Yeah, and there's a picture of it too, which is awesome. I guess this thing is in really good condition still.
Oh, really? Mine's in terrible shape.
No, this one actually looks really good. It's great. It's got the damage piece still in, so it's good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Sickle Claw here says I really, really like my Red Rex, so that's another vote for number 1 there. Victoria's Cantina says number 1, Red Rex. Number 2, Series 1, Young T-Rex. Number 3, Series 1, Triceratops. Number 4, Command Compound. Number 5, Series 2, Dr. Malcolm. And yeah, you're right. You talked about it before. That was the first time we saw the Malcolm character because he wasn't part of Series 1. Yeah, it was. You know, we'll get back to that. I'm going to bring that up just at the end, but we'll get back to the characters not being put into figures. But yeah, keep going for sure. Right. This is awesome. N7 Patrick says young T-Rex, Bush Devil Jeep, compound set with fences, Red Rex, and Muldoon. So there's another good set there. Let's see. I have one more set here, I think, or one more at least. This last one here on Twitter is from, actually it's not too much here, but it's from Jarrett. He was on that Lost World episode we did with that top 5, and he actually just put, I own the original Command Center in the box, and he put a bunch of dollar bill signs, so shows you that thing's going to be worth a lot of money.
Well, aren't you special, Jarrett?
Yeah.
Can I come in here with your Command Compound in the box with all your dollar signs? But the question is, will he ever sell it? Because it's really worth absolutely nothing until he's willing to put it up on eBay.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Like, you know, my toys, like we talked about, and you talked about, they're all beat up. They're not worth anything. But to us, you know, even though they're falling apart and damaged and everything, they're worth like $1 million. So it's going to be difficult for anybody, even an in-box Command Center, to ever part with that.
Yeah, you know, when I first moved to Burbank, there's a cool little store, Blast from the Past, that sells like 90s and on like toys, and probably a little earlier, but he just had a few Jurassic things. And I remember going in there one day, and he had a Sarah Harding figure, and he was like, you know, he's like, eBay says that she's worth like $60. He's like, I am never gonna get $60 for her. Like, he's like, would you give me 20? And I'm like, absolutely, yes. Like, let's do this. Like, I wasn't gonna pay $60 for her because I already had one like out of the box. But you know, I feel like Jurassic is such a niche fandom. We're obviously not as big as Star Wars. You know, no hate for Star Wars, obviously, but like, you know, Jurassic is my first passion. So yeah, whenever you come across guys that like just feel like, you know, like, hey, this is sitting on my shelf and like, it kind of just, it's been here forever. Like, you know, I'm always happy to take stuff off their hands. You know, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the great thing about this community is we all like share the same passion. We all love these toys, and we all have similar, you know, memories about them too. So it's great to be able to sit down and talk to somebody like we've never actually physically met or talked in person before, and we can sit here and talk about this like we've known each other forever because we have the same feelings and same emotions, the same, you know, memories, all about these dinosaurs.
Yeah, you know, like there's definitely been people on the show that I'll tweet at, and it's like, you know, I would never just like randomly tweet at a stranger, but like because of the show, you know, like I think because our community is, I mean, it's small, right? Like I was looking at followers of JP podcast versus like followers of like a Star Wars podcast, and you know, it was like all right, man, JP podcast, like 2,000 some odd followers, and then you look at Star Wars, it's like 5 million followers. It's like, oh, okay, like, well, let's see how it is, you know.
Yeah, it's a small community, and especially on Twitter, there's a lot of, you know, the mainstays, and I think it's a great community, and it's building, it's slowly building, but you know, it may never touch the links of Star Wars, but I think we're doing pretty good.
Oh yeah, we're doing all right.
So
all right,
so
well,
to finish, you wanted to finish up one thing there, so go ahead.
I have one question for you. If they were to come out, if you were a kid, now there's human figures that didn't get characters, right? Hammond didn't get a character, Lex didn't get a figure. The lawyer, like, you know, all the tertiary characters didn't get figures. There are some dinosaurs that didn't get figures. If you could have any figure made that was a licensed Jurassic Park Series 1 or 2 product, what would it be?
Oh man, putting me on. I'm not usually the one who gets put on the spot. This is tough. So it's gonna fit right in with the rest of these toys and look just like those.
It is gonna be like you're gonna travel back in time, and it's gonna be there on the shelf with all these other toys.
It's tough because we got so much of that film, you know. We got the Dilo, the Rex, the Raptors, you know, everything basically, except for, you know, maybe a Hammond. So I might as well pick like a Hammond that comes with, you know, his cane and you know, he's got the full outfit, the
that's
hat,
awesome.
you know, and maybe he comes with a bazooka as well. But could you imagine Hammond with like a nice bazooka attached to his back? Like, I could see it.
I would love a Hammond with a bazooka strapped to his back. I think we all want to see that image. People with Photoshop, get to it.
Yeah. Or you know what? Even like a realistic Nedry would be awesome. You know, because
you know the series 2 one was closer.
It's closer, but like I feel like it still doesn't capture that like Nedry that we know. Let me take a look real quick. I just want to double check, but this, especially the Series 1, it's so different. You know, it doesn't look anything like Nedry at all.
Oh no, the Series 1 Nedry is like slick scheming bad guy. You know, like.
But no,
and that's just not the
even
character.
This one, even this Series 2 one, he basically has that villain look. You know, he's got like this like red turtleneck. It still doesn't replicate like what he looks like, you know, as a character.
Yeah, where's the Hawaiian shirt?
I want that shirt. I want the glasses. This guy doesn't have any glasses. Like,
oh, that's no fun.
How do you make that and not have it look? I mean, it's got like he's a little bit thicker of a character, but barely, just in the face.
Yeah,
but he does have some sort of like, you know, chest mounted like pack of some sort. I don't know, but to have something that looked like the original Nedry would be awesome as well.
Yeah, so like for me, I was thinking about this question earlier because I've always wanted a Hammond and I've always wanted a Lex. every dinosaur in that movie, except for the Parasaurolophus, which they get to in the Lost World, but they are in the movie for a brief second. But the big star that doesn't get a toy is the Brachiosaur. And I feel like if they just would have made it so that like he just came in a box, but like taken apart, you know, and like you had to like maybe snap him together or whatever like that, and he just like was kind of like he didn't even move, like no posability, no nothing. But if you could just like take him out and he was just big, right? I wish they would have done something like that, but
yeah,
I if you're gonna choose between like T-Rex or Brachiosaur, like what's the kid gonna buy off the shelf, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, to make the Rex over that. And I was actually honestly thinking that now that you say that, we were talking about the sizes of these dinosaurs, and while we were talking about that, I thought in my head, like, imagine like comparative to the T-Rex, like a life-size, you know, Brachiosaurus. That would be out of control.
Yeah, and you know, but like, so the scales on these weren't 100%, because it all comes down to like fitting in boxes for like shipping and stuff. But like, again, like, so my idea was to like break it down and so that like you just took it out and maybe like you just had this long like neck and head and you just snapped it into a torso, and then you had like 4 legs and you just snapped it into the torso. You had a tail and you just snapped it into the torso, and it wouldn't have to be huge, but it would definitely be taller than the T-Rex, which would be awesome, you know. But
yeah, or you could have some sort of like
mechanical
spring-loaded neck that you could kind of press a button and it would like shoot out, so it would be longer, and then you could shoot it back down to kind of like compress it so you could store it or whatever. Something would have been amazing, but it would have been so huge, you know. But I can't blame them for not making it. But that would have been amazing.
Yeah, that'd have been awesome.
But
so
I'll have to stick with my little baby Brachiosaurus for now, because this guy's awesome, at least.
That's all we got.
So, to wrap everything up, where can everybody find you? Everybody in this awesome community, where can they find you online?
All right, so if you want to like find me, you can always tweet at me at Aaron D. Beyer. I use my real name, which, you know, whatever. You can tweet me there if people listening to this podcast are obviously interested in Jurassic Park, but that is like my Jurassic Park outlet. I go a little crazy on Facebook, but like my Twitter is my Jurassic Park outlet. If you want to see things that I've worked on, like movie wise, you can always search for me on IMDb. I've got a cool little list going on of films I've worked on, and if you just want to support 3D movies, feel free to check those out. I usually try to list those as soon as the movie comes out, the ones I've worked on, but please go see 3D movies, and we hope you enjoy them, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So hopefully everybody goes, checks out your stuff, and gets a hold of you on Twitter and starts interacting. So I had a great time discussing this, and hopefully people hit you up with their top 10 or top 5s.
Yeah, great, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. We'll have to do this
I just
again.
got involved in this community a few months ago, and it has just been like, it's like fun. I don't know, like I never thought like social media was like really fun. I always use it as like as a communication device, but like it's actually like fun to like interact with the show and stuff. So it's really cool. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, it's a great community, and I can't wait to get you back to discuss our top 5 Lost World series.
That's a good series. They got real creative with that one. So
we'll have to talk about it soon.
That's
one of my favorites. So the sequel is on the way, and we'll get to talking to that soon.
All right, great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man.
Hold on to your butts.
To celebrate Jurassic June, we are giving away Jurassic World on DVD and The Good Dinosaur on Blu-ray. All you have to do to win is go to iTunes, give us a 5-star review, and leave a comment with the hashtag Jurassic giveaway and the DVD of your choice. That's it. It helps us and it helps you. We will be picking the 2 winners at the end of Jurassic June. Make sure to head to JurassicParkPodcast.com for more information on the giveaway.
Anybody hear that?
DinosaurStop.com has a great giveaway going on right now, where you could win a hybrid FX Tyrannosaurus Rex, Owen Alpha with Velociraptor Blue Set, a Jurassic World slap band, and a replica park map. Now that's an absurd amount of stuff for having to do so little. So all you have to do is either subscribe to their YouTube channel and comment on the giveaway video, or you can go to their Facebook, like their page, and comment on the giveaway post. That's 2 ridiculously simple ways to enter. So make sure to head over to dinosaurstop.com to find out more information on the contest and the prizes. Thanks for listening to the 57th episode of the Jurassic Park Podcast. Big thanks to Aaron for joining me to talk about Jurassic Park's awesome toy line. I know it's a toy line that so many of us really cherish, so it's really easy to get excited about it and talk about it. Go follow Aaron at Aaron D. Beyer on Twitter. Also, thanks to everybody who submitted their top 5s. I always love hearing from you, and I really enjoyed discussing your feedback with our guests. Now, if you didn't get a chance to send in your top 5, you can always send them in via email or voice recording, and I'll read them or play them on the upcoming episodes. If you want to interact with us, we do most of our work over on Twitter, at Jurassic Park Pod. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/Jurassic Park Podcast, and our Instagram handle is at Jurassic Park Podcast. You can listen to us via iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Podomatic, YouTube, or wherever else podcasts are found. So make sure to subscribe to automatically get the new episodes every week. If you haven't already, please give us a 5-star review in iTunes, or a great review wherever you listen to the podcast. It will seriously help out our rankings and make it easier for fans like you to find us. We're usually spotted commenting on the Jurassic Park subreddit as Jurassic Park Podcast. Don't forget to check out JurassicParkPodcast.com for all the links you heard here today. If you want to get a hold of us, you can email us with any news stories, MP3s, segment ideas, top 5s, or comments to JurassicParkPod@gmail.com, or you can submit the questions directly on our website contact form. If you'd like to record something for the show, send it in to us and we'll feature it in an upcoming episode. If you don't have any way to record, you can give our voicemail a call and leave us a message. That number is 732-825-7763. Thanks for listening, and enjoy.
5 minutes. Drop what you're doing and leave now.